Have you ever wondered why the men who seemed least interested suddenly fall harder for the women who let them go? It's not about playing games, it's about something deeper, something that taps into the very core of attraction. Stick around as we dive into the secrets behind why letting go might be the most powerful thing you can do in a relationship. If you've ever felt undervalued or ignored, this could change everything you thought you knew about love. Don't go anywhere. This is about to get real. This hook piques curiosity and hints at valuable insights, keeping viewers hooked and wanting more. A woman who has the strength to let go of a man, even when her heart still cares, is a woman who knows her worth. She understands that love should never cost her peace or dignity. In a world where many chase after validation, she stands out by choosing self-respect over temporary comfort. Men sense that. They may not articulate it in words, but they feel it. That quiet confidence is rare and unforgettable. When you let someone go without begging them to stay, you show that your happiness doesn't hinge on their presence. That's power. Not the kind that dominates, but the kind that dignifies. And for many men, that's the moment they realize they may have underestimated her. Not because she tried to prove anything, but because she didn't need to. When a woman walks away, not with bitterness, but with grace, it leaves an imprint. It signals that she doesn't fear being alone. She trusts that what's meant for her won't require her to constantly prove her value. That trust in herself is compelling. A man might have expected drama, tears, or a plea for closure, but instead she gave him space. And in that silence, he's left wondering, why isn't she chasing me? Why isn't she fighting to keep me? And the answer is simple, because she doesn't have to. That kind of emotional discipline shakes a man more than any argument ever could. It forces him to see her in a new light. And often it's only after she's gone that he begins to truly see what she was offering all along. Letting go doesn't mean you didn't care. It means you cared enough about yourself to stop settling. It means you recognized when someone's presence became more painful than their absence. And while it may break your heart to walk away, deep down, you know it would break your spirit to stay. That kind of inner clarity is what separates a high-value woman from the rest. She doesn't just love with her heart, she loves with her standards. And when a man sees that, it either scares him or inspires him. Either way, he won't forget her, because she's not just another person who came into his life. She's the one who showed him what self-worth looks like in action. Most men are used to being chased. When they pull away, they expect to be begged for another chance, to be pleaded with not to leave. So when a woman responds with stillness, with peace, it disrupts their pattern. It makes them pause. And in that pause, they start to question their choices. Was she really the problem? Or did I take her for granted? That shift in thinking doesn't happen when you fight to hold on. It happens when you bravely let go, because nothing is more attractive than someone who values themselves enough to say, if you don't see my worth, someone else will. That confidence isn't spoken, it's lived, and it echoes louder than words ever could. Walking away with dignity shows a man that your world doesn't collapse without him. You had a life before him, and you'll have one after. That's not arrogance. That's maturity. It's the realization that love is not about losing yourself in another person. It's about finding someone who matches the love you already give yourself. And when a woman walks away with that energy, it challenges the man to rise or retreat. Either way, she wins, because she's not operating from desperation. She's operating from wholeness. And that kind of wholeness is a standard most men don't encounter often, but when they do, it stays with them long after the goodbye. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. So when a woman lets a man go, instead of tolerating inconsistency, she's drawing a line in the sand. She's saying, this is what I allow in my life, and this isn't it. That boundary is where her power lives. It's where she reclaims her energy, her peace, and her future. And that boundary, while painful in the moment, becomes the very thing that earns a man's respect. Because deep down, men don't respect what's easy to get. They respect what's real. And a woman who can let go with love, not out of hate, but out of strength, becomes unforgettable. Not because she tried to be, but because she was true to herself. Men fall harder when they realize the woman they lost wasn't trying to impress them, she was just being authentic. She didn't twist herself into knots to be chosen. She didn't beg for breadcrumbs of attention. She gave from a full heart until she noticed he wasn't meeting her there. And then she left, not as a threat, not as a game, but as a declaration of her worth. That move rewrites the story. Suddenly, the man isn't in control of the narrative anymore. She is. And that shift in dynamic forces him to reconsider everything. Not because she demanded his attention, but because she withdrew hers. With quiet strength, she made herself unforgettable. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply walk away. No words, no drama, just silence. That silence speaks volumes. It tells him everything he needs to know. You are not afraid to lose him if it means finding yourself. That's rare, that's courageous, and that's the kind of woman a man remembers. Because she didn't try to force love. She allowed it the space to either grow or fade. And when it faded, she didn't shrink, she rose. That kind of woman doesn't wait for closure. She is the closure. When men fall harder for her, not because she chased them, but because she didn't. Letting go is not a weakness. It's the ultimate strength. It's choosing the unknown over the familiar pain. It's trusting that your future deserves more than your past. And when a woman makes that choice, she becomes the most powerful version of herself. That transformation doesn't go unnoticed, especially by the man who once had her heart. He might not say it, but he feels it. He remembers the way she loved, the way she gave, and ultimately the way she left, not out of hate, but out of love for herself. That kind of goodbye is not easy to forget. Because it wasn't about punishing him, it was about protecting her. A woman who lets go doesn't lose, she evolves. She doesn't cry for closure, she becomes it. And while he may have walked away first, she's the one who truly moved on. That's what hits hardest, not the fact that she left, but the fact that she meant it. That she didn't use leaving as a tactic to get him back, but as a final step toward healing. That kind of authenticity has a way of piercing through ego and landing straight in the heart. And for many men, it's only after she's gone that they realize she was never trying to win him. She was trying to win herself. And she did. When a woman pulls away, something shifts in the air, something a man doesn't expect. Most people think connection deepens when you're constantly present, constantly reaching out. But in reality, true emotional impact often happens in the space you create when you let go. That distance allows a man to feel the loss, not just see it. When you're always there, he never has to imagine life without you. But when you disappear, not in anger, but in peace, it creates a vacuum. And in that silence, he starts hearing the echo of everything you used to give. The warmth, the comfort, the laughter. All those moments replay louder when you're no longer around to recreate them. Suddenly, what felt ordinary becomes precious. And he begins to wonder if he ever truly appreciated it while he had the chance. Men don't typically fall in love during the highs, when everything is perfect. They fall in love in the moments when they realize something valuable is missing. That moment often doesn't arrive until a woman stops overgiving. until she pulls back and stops reminding him how good she was to him. When a woman detaches and gives him space, it allows his own emotions to surface. And sometimes he doesn't even know how much he cares until she's gone. That emotional clarity doesn't happen in noise. It happens in quiet, in absence, in solitude. He starts to remember how she made him feel. Not just what she did, but who he was when she was in his life. And if he truly cared, that realization hits deeper than any argument or conversation ever could. Space is uncomfortable, and that's the point. When you're no longer calling, texting, or showing up for him, it forces him to sit in that discomfort. That space makes him confront what life feels like without your energy. It's easy to take someone for granted when they're always available, but the moment you step back, he has to reevaluate what he lost. That's when his mind starts playing back memories, not the bad moments, the beautiful ones, the little things you did, the way you made him feel heard. And the contrast between then and now becomes undeniable. You don't have to remind him what he had. He starts to feel it. And when a man starts to feel, he starts to fall. Silence has a power that words can never match. When a woman stops explaining herself and just creates distance, it forces a different kind of awareness. Men are used to women chasing, explaining, fighting to stay relevant. But the woman who simply pulls back without theatrics shifts the dynamic completely. Suddenly, he's not defending himself, he's defending the empty space she left behind. That quiet is where he replays the last thing she said. It's where he questions if he underestimated her value. And in that silence, she becomes louder in his life than ever before. Not because she said more, but because she finally stopped talking. She let the space speak for her, and it always speaks loudest. Men are often slow to process emotional loss. It takes time for them to notice the absence and even more time to admit its weight. But that's why space is so powerful. It gives him room to catch up emotionally. And once he starts feeling, he starts missing. Missing leads to reflection. Reflection leads to regret. And regret can often lead to a deeper level of attachment than the relationship ever had while it was active. Because now he's looking back with new eyes. He's no longer focused on her flaws or the reasons he pulled away. He's focused on what she brought into his life. And in that reflection, he begins to feel her value in a way he couldn't while she was standing right in front of him. When a woman gives space, she's not punishing the man, she's preserving herself. That distinction matters because real space isn't a tactic, it's a truth. It's saying, I can no longer pour into this if it isn't being poured back into. And that self-respect is what eventually captures his attention. He starts to see that she didn't need to leave with drama to make a statement. She just stopped showing up for someone who wasn't showing up for her. And in doing so, she taught him a powerful lesson. Love isn't proven through presence alone. Sometimes it's proven in the strength it takes to step away. That kind of strength is rare. And rare things always leave a lasting impression. The truth is, desire needs tension to stay alive. And sometimes the absence of someone creates more tension than their constant presence ever could. When a man can't access a woman the way he used to, his curiosity kicks in. He starts wondering what she's doing, how she's feeling, whether she's moved on. That curiosity grows into interest into longing, longing into desire, and that's the emotional journey that makes him fall harder. Not because she manipulated him, but because she allowed the natural consequences of distance to unfold. She didn't interrupt the process. She trusted that if he was capable of valuing her, he would feel it on his own. And when he does, the feeling is more intense, more real, and more lasting. People don't miss who you were, they miss how they felt when they were with you. So when a woman stops showing up, a man doesn't just miss her voice or her touch, he misses how she made him feel about himself. And when he no longer has access to that emotional experience, he starts to feel the emptiness. That emotional contrast is what drives a man to finally see her differently. Suddenly, she's not just the woman who texted every morning, she's the one who made his world feel a little safer, a little more inspired. And when she's gone, the lack of that feeling becomes louder. That's when the fall begins. Not during the relationship, but in the echo of her absence. The woman who can walk away without needing closure sends a powerful signal. I trust that what's meant for me won't need to be forced. That message, spoken through her actions, creates a different kind of attraction. It's not rooted in drama or dependency, it's rooted in emotional maturity. And for many men, that maturity is what they didn't realize they were looking for until it was gone. Her silence becomes a mirror. And in that mirror, he sees his own choices clearly, sometimes for the first time. That's why space is so effective. It doesn't manipulate, it illuminates. And once he sees what he's lost, the impact hits harder than any emotional plea ever could. Giving a man space isn't about playing games. It's about preserving your energy. It's about understanding that if you're always available, always responsive, he never gets the chance to realize how much you mattered. Letting go with grace is not about being indifferent. It's about being emotionally intelligent. It's knowing when to hold on and when holding on becomes a form of self-abandonment. When a woman lets go, not out of revenge, but from a place of quiet strength, it reveals emotional depth that most people never develop. That level of maturity is rare and magnetic. It's not that she stopped caring, it's that she started caring about herself more. Men sense that, even if they can't put it into words. It's the emotional difference between a woman who needs him and a woman who chooses him. And when she chooses to walk away, she's saying, I don't chase what doesn't recognize my value. That self-honoring choice is what lingers in a man's mind long after she's gone. It's what starts to make her unforgettable. Most men have experienced someone begging them to stay, explaining their worth, trying to fix things through effort alone. But the woman who chooses peace over proving herself stands out in the most powerful way. She's not cold, she's just centered. She's not heartless, she's just awake to her own value. That quiet clarity disrupts expectations, and in that disruption, something shifts inside him. He starts to wonder, why didn't she fight for me? But the better question is, why did he think she had to? Because in truth, love shouldn't require someone to lose themselves to keep someone else. And when a man meets a woman who walks away not because she stopped loving him, but because she started loving herself more, he remembers that. It becomes a reference point for every woman he meets after. The irony is that many men don't fall in love while the relationship is alive and breathing. They fall after it ends. When she's no longer there to comfort him, support him, remind him of her care, he starts to realize the depth of what he lost. Because sometimes it takes losing her to finally feel her presence. That realization doesn't come when she's over-explaining or overcompensating. It comes when she stops texting, stops calling, stops waiting. Her silence becomes a mirror. And in that mirror, he sees not just her absence, but his own behavior. What he took for granted, what he dismissed, what he thought would always be there. And that's when the regret starts to settle in, piece by piece, until he realizes the truth. She wasn't ordinary, she was rare, and he let her go. A woman's emotional maturity is one of the most attractive qualities she can possess. It's not just about how she handles love, it's about how she handles loss. When she lets go with composure, When she doesn't need to demonize him to move forward, she becomes elevated in his eyes. Not because she played it cool, but because she was real. Real about her limits, real about her boundaries, real about the fact that she deserves more than someone half invested. That kind of truth hits harder than any anger ever could. It's the kind of truth that lingers. And for a man who wasn't ready to meet her at that level, it becomes a turning point. He might not show it, but internally, he's wrestling with the contrast between her and everyone else. And often, that's the moment he starts to fall harder than ever before. A woman who lets go with grace shows that she doesn't equate love with suffering. She doesn't cling to something just because she invested time or emotions. She's wise enough to know that the wrong relationship, no matter how familiar, will never lead to the right life. That wisdom isn't loud. It doesn't scream. It simply walks away, quietly reclaiming its peace. And in that movement, there's something powerful, something undeniably attractive. Men admire women who can love deeply, but also know when to walk away. That duality of softness and strength is rare, and it makes him question everything he thought he knew about her. Because she wasn't weak for loving him, but she was strong for loving herself enough to leave. That's not just maturity. That's emotional mastery. It's easy to stay in a relationship out of fear. Fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear of regret. But the woman who lets go anyway, despite those fears, demonstrates courage. That courage is what sets her apart. She's not controlled by emotions, she honors them, but she doesn't let them dictate her direction. And that self-control is attractive on a deep soul level. It tells him, I'm whole with or without you. That's not arrogance, it's truth. And when he finally understands that, it shakes him. Because most of us are drawn to what grounds us. And when she becomes the calm in her own storm, she no longer needs him to anchor her. Ironically, that's what often makes him want to anchor himself to her even more. Letting go doesn't mean she stopped caring. It means she realized caring alone isn't enough. Love is a two-way street, and she finally stopped driving alone. That clarity doesn't come overnight. It comes after countless emotional withdrawals from a one-sided relationship. And when she finally reaches her emotional limit, she walks. Not because she wants to hurt him, but because she refuses to keep hurting herself. That choice isn't just self-care, it's self-love. And self-love, when embodied fully, changes the way a man sees her. She's no longer the girl who tolerated his indifference. She's the woman who respected herself enough to walk away from it. And in that moment, he sees the contrast between who she was and who she's become. And he starts to fall for the woman he never truly appreciated when she was his. Men often fall harder for the women who don't make their love a performance, the ones who love without attachment, who give without expectation, and who leave without resentment. Those women don't just love from the heart, they love from a place of fullness. And that fullness is what stays in a man's mind. When she walks away without needing to destroy him to heal herself, it reveals emotional independence. And emotional independence is unforgettable. It makes him look at her and think, how did I not see this before? But that's the point. He couldn't see her clearly until she stepped away, until she stopped trying, until she became the mystery he used to have access to. That's when the admiration starts. That's when the fall begins. Not in her presence, but in her absence. The deepest emotional connection is not built through constant effort, it's built through clarity. When a woman lets go, she's offering him clarity in the most profound way. She's saying, this is who I am, and I will not shrink to be loved. That message, delivered without bitterness, lands differently. It's not about guilt. It's not about manipulation. It's about truth. And truth is what stays with people. It cuts through confusion, noise, and ego. He may not respond right away. He may not show the impact outwardly, but internally, that clarity stirs something deep. It challenges him. It humbles him. And if he has the emotional capacity to grow, it might even transform him. But whether it does or doesn't, one thing remains true. She stood tall in her truth, and that truth will echo far beyond the moment she let go. When a woman lets a man go, it often creates a space where both individuals are forced to confront their own emotions. The act of stepping back isn't just about removing yourself physically. It's about creating an emotional void that allows both partners to reflect on what was lost. In that silence, he starts to feel the absence more acutely than he ever would have if she had stayed and kept trying. Absence does more than simply create space. It makes him realize the weight of her presence in a way that constant interaction never could. He might have taken her for granted when she was always there, but when she leaves, her absence forces him to reconsider her value, to see her as someone he could lose. And that fear of loss is often the catalyst for deeper emotional attachment. He begins to miss not just what she did, but who she was in his life. And that feeling can evolve into a longing that wasn't there before. Often, it's not the woman's absence itself that makes a man fall. It's the awareness of what he is losing. People rarely appreciate the things that are constant until they are no longer available. The moment she stops showing up in the ways she used to, he is left with a stark realization. He no longer has access to her warmth, her affection, and the unique dynamic she brought into his life. It's a loss that can't be ignored or numbed. And that feeling of loss, especially when it comes from someone who used to be so present, creates a sense of urgency in a man's heart. It's the realization that he may have taken her for granted, that he may not have truly understood her worth until it was too late. That kind of emotional clarity is often what drives him to fall harder for her, because now he's seen what he was missing, and the void she left behind only highlights how much she mattered. The woman who lets a man go teaches him that love doesn't have to be a constant act of proving, chasing, or holding on. There is power in allowing someone to miss you, in stepping back and letting the relationship breathe. This space isn't about playing games. It's about recognizing that love should come from a place of abundance, not desperation. When a woman stops chasing, it signals to him that she values herself enough to walk away if needed. And that's something a man can't help but respect. Men often become attracted to women who do not need them, but choose them. The distinction is important. When she chooses to pull away, it's not out of spite. It's because she knows that she doesn't need to force anything. She can only give so much without receiving the same in return. And that self-respect, that decision to prioritize her own well-being, becomes a lesson in emotional strength that many men find themselves admiring. It's this maturity and self-awareness that often leads them to fall harder when they realize what they've lost. Love that comes from desperation often feels fragile, but love that is given freely and without need is powerful. When a woman lets go, she gives a man the opportunity to appreciate her love without feeling it's being constantly demanded. By stepping back, she removes the emotional pressure that may have been building up. And in that release, he begins to see her love in a new light. It's no longer something that is readily available and always on the table. It becomes something he has to earn. The moment a woman detaches, she creates a kind of emotional mystery. She becomes less predictable, less accessible. And that unpredictability often makes a man reevaluate his feelings. His desire grows because he now has to put in more effort to reconnect with her. And it's that effort that brings deeper emotional engagement. This is when a man starts to realize that love should not just be a given, it should be earned. And that's when he starts to see her as irreplaceable. Sometimes a man's emotional investment deepens only when he realizes he might lose the connection altogether. It's when a woman steps back that he begins to notice the imbalance in the relationship, the emotional distance that had been growing quietly. The absence creates a shift in the dynamic. Before she let go, he might have thought she would always be there, willing to continue giving her time, energy, and love. But when she decides to take a step back and stop waiting for him, something changes. He is forced to reflect on his own behavior and the emotional space he's been neglecting. The realization that she is no longer available in the way she once was can stir up regret, a feeling that often leads to emotional growth. A man might not fully understand how deeply he cares for her until he feels that distance between them. And that is when he realizes that love is not something he can take for granted. It's something he must nurture if he wants to keep it. Men often don't fully appreciate the emotional labor that women invest in relationships until they experience the absence of it. A woman's decision to let go doesn't just affect the immediate dynamic. It also makes him reflect on the small things she did that he may have overlooked. When she stops texting first, making plans, or showing interest, those actions that were once second nature become glaringly absent. And as he sits with this absence, he starts to realize how much he relied on her emotional support, how much he took for granted her consistent presence in his life. This feeling of missing her is what creates the emotional longing. He begins to remember the way she made him feel special, the thoughtful gestures that once seemed ordinary. And it's in those memories that his attachment deepens. It's not about what she did in the moment, it's about how her presence made him feel valued. And now that she's gone, he starts to miss that feeling in a way that makes him realize he was emotionally connected all along. The emotional maturity that comes with letting go often shifts the power dynamic in a relationship. The woman who lets go without guilt or drama is often seen in a new light by a man. She doesn't need him to complete her, to validate her, or to prove anything to her. She knows that her worth isn't tied to him, and that alone makes her incredibly attractive. This sense of emotional independence is something many men find magnetic because it offers a sense of stability that is rare in relationships. A woman who is able to step away without needing a dramatic confrontation is often perceived as someone who is emotionally secure and knows her worth. And that security is what makes her more desirable. She doesn't chase him for his love. She chooses to share it if he is worthy of it. That kind of self-assurance is rare and speaks volumes about her emotional depth. It also serves as a reminder to him of what he stands to lose if he doesn't value her as she deserves. When a woman lets go, she also gives him the space to realize that love isn't about clinging to someone. It's about being willing to let them go if necessary. The absence she creates forces him to realize the nature of his attachment. If he values her, if he respects her, if he truly loves her, the only way he can express that is by showing up, by making the effort to build something sustainable with her. When she pulls away, she gives him the chance to show whether or not he's willing to do that. It's not about manipulation, it's about giving him the space to meet her at a higher level. And when he does, when he comes back to prove that he values her, it's not out of fear of losing her. It's because he genuinely recognizes that she is worth the effort. And that's when love becomes something deeper, something more real. And it's in that process that he falls harder for her. The space created by letting go is not only an opportunity for reflection, but also a chance for emotional rebirth. A man might not understand how much he cares for a woman until he feels the absence she leaves. When she steps back and gives him the emotional distance he needs to come to his own conclusions, he starts to see her in a new light. He starts to appreciate her on a deeper level, understanding that true love is not about always being there, but about creating the room for both people to grow. The emotional growth that occurs when a woman lets go is what makes the connection even more powerful. And in that space, both partners are given the opportunity to choose one another, not out of obligation,